The Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's a hump of the week Wednesday morning. It's 32 minutes past 6 a.m. My name is Ayokunmi, and welcome to the world of business. Yes, it's the business side of life this Wednesday morning. The next 15 minutes, it's all about what's been going on in the business world. And of course, you are most welcome to join us on this journey we'll be taking this morning. Thank you for always keeping it tuned and, of course, keeping it locked right here. We're going to be having a conversation this morning about investor appetite for Nigeria's latest bond auction. Yes, indeed. Joining me to have this conversation is Oyinkansola Aregbesola. She's an investment associate at AAG Capital. Very good morning to you, Oyinkansola. Great to have you on the show once again.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, before I go any further, I need to congratulate you on recently getting your ACA Chartered Accountant certification. Yes, indeed. The last time we were on the show together was sometime in November. That hadn't happened yet. So,
Mm.
it was from, should I say, um, caterpillar into butterfly, something along those lines. And, very good stuff there, seeing you
Yeah,
do what
thank
it is
you.
that you do. Bearing that in mind, looking at all the work you've actually put in, I'm curious to know, is accounting still as crucial today as a career path as it has been in times past?
Well, yes, definitely. I mean, if any business is going to survive at all, you need a finance person on the team, and being a chartered accountant or even pushing the profession itself basically helps you or puts you on that edge as being a business thought leader. So yes, the accounting profession is very relevant. There's no business, there's no company that would not talk about finance. So getting it right on that leg is very important, and so definitely that puts anyone in that field
Hmm.
in a very good position. So yes,
Oh,
it's very relevant till today.
okay. Good to know that. Good to know that. All right. That being said, what we came to talk about this morning, bonds, and of course, an investor's appetite for the latest bond auction. I mean, we had one on May the 26th. That was 2 days ago. Now, we understand it was a reopening of two instruments, the 19.3% FGN April 2029 5-year bond and the 19.89% FGN May 2033 9-year bond. What exactly is a bond reopening to start with?
Okay, so when we see bond reopening, it simply means it's an underrun bond. And what do I mean? It's basically issued multiple times until the shelf life of the bond is complete. It's similar to the situation that we have with corporate bonds. If you hear something like Series 1, Series 2, or Series
Mhm.
A, Series B bond, yeah, so because the federal government would always issue regularly, specifically on a monthly basis. So instead of doing series one and two, so it's basically a reopening. So until the shelf life of the bond is complete, it will continue to be issued in the markets on a monthly basis.
Hmm. Okay, now looking at the bond reopening, and according to headlines that have been making the rounds that I've seen anyway, the 5-year bond did not get as much love from investors, at the bond auction. Why exactly did this happen?
Okay, so I won't necessarily say it didn't receive much love. So really, if we look at the trend, interest rate is currently high at the moment when it comes to bonds or any auction
Mhm.
or any government security auctions.
Right.
So the federal government is kind of being careful about the cost implication. So we would observe that duration is basically scarce. When I mean duration, I'm talking about the longer term bond. So because,
Okay.
for example, interest rate is at record high. Imagine issuing a 20-year bond for maybe let's say 20%, and then you have to pay that interest rate over time for like 20 years. So
Mm,
government is trying to, cut costs, manage their, financing costs. So that's why we see limited offering for longer time bonds. And also, you can see that some of these investors, particularly the pension funds guys, they are the pension funds administrator, that like the largest investor in federal government bonds due to the nature of their business. I mean, their liabilities is a long-term liability, right? So they'll need
right.
to invest, they'll need to match that with investment that's longer term, right? So that's why we'd see more demand for duration at the auction.
Okay. For you listening to us out there, you can join the conversation and share your thoughts, any questions you might have with us this morning on WhatsApp. The number is 0809-444-0981. You can also join the live stream on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. You can also leave your comments in the chat box there. Okay, looking at what you've just explained, Oyinkansola, so would you say that investors would um, prefer longer term bonds to shorter term bonds? I mean, now and maybe even in the future as well. Would that be a normal dynamic, or would we see a situation where they'll prefer, I don't know, the shorter term bonds? Could there be anything that would change that dynamic?
So when it comes to preference, it really depends on the kind of investor that we're talking about. So yes, like I alluded earlier, for the pension fund companies, they would prefer the longer term duration due to the nature of their business, right? So, but for someone that is looking to maybe do a short term he or she has a short-term obligation, such a
Right.
person would prefer a short-term bond. So it really depends on the circumstance, who is the investor that we're talking about, and so that would determine the duration, the investments that they would prefer, either the short-term bonds or the long-term bonds. For instance, if we're talking about Sukuk bonds.
Are you there, Yukonsola? Oh dear. Looks like the gremlins have crept into the connection, and Yukonsola just should I say froze? Okay, I'll see what I can do to get her back on board ASAP. I need her to complete that thought, and I have a couple of questions more that I still need to ask her this morning on the show. Let me see what I can do to fix that one. Just keep it tuned and don't go anywhere. This is Business Express brought to you by InterSwitch this Wednesday morning, right here on Smooth 98.1. I'll be back in a moment. Your internet kick, your internet kicked you out. It happens.
Yeah, it's actually my phone that because I was using my phone, so it's this iPhone temperature issue. So it went
Ah,
on emergency.
oh, okay, okay. That was
Uh,
your network. All right, no problem. Let's just jump back. You have about 2.5 minutes. Let's see what we can do in that
okay.
short period. All right. And we're back. Apologies for the short interlude there. Sometimes when technology decides to play its part, there's not really much you can do, but I've got Oyinkansola back on board with me this morning. Oyinkansola, welcome back. I thought
Thank you.
maybe network spirits had decided, you know what, you were done for them. Not by any stretch of the imagination. We still have a bit of ground to cover before we call it a morning. Just a few minutes, but I know we can make the best of the time that we have. All right, so looking at everything we've discussed right now, something has been on my mind that I said I need to actually ask. Looking at all the other securities that we have on offer in Nigeria, can we actually say that bonds are still a good investment instrument compared to the other available ones that we have?
Okay, so it really so yeah, it is still a good option. Like I said, it really depends on who is investing and why. So for bonds, you can see more of institutional investors chase bonds, particularly the longer term. For the money market instruments is basically as good as cash. So it is very liquid, and most of the time it beats inflation because we have what we call the inverted yield curve at the moment in Nigeria. What do I mean? For the short term instruments, the yield on short term instruments is higher than the yield on longer term instruments. So money
Okay.
market security is also a good option, and it really depends on the reason why you're investing or your time horizon. So for stocks are also a good option, especially when it comes to a good macroeconomic environment. If the country is growing in terms of GDP, would see
Mm.
that trickle down to the performance of these individual companies, and so that would also basically serve as an upside when it comes to stock investing. So it really depends on your reason for investing, and your time horizon. So it's actually best to combine all of these options
Okay.
together. Yeah.
It's a diverse portfolio. I got you on that one. Okay, let me take a message as we wrap up the conversation this morning. Very interesting question here coming from Gilbert Musa. He's in Festac. Now he says, how can an individual benefit from these bonds? He says, I mean investment wise.
Investments wise, okay, so already firstly, when you invest in government bonds, you're getting an interest. So you're not dashing. This is not giveaway. For example, you're not doing giveaway. So you're basically lending your money out to the government in return for regular coupons. For bonds, it's paid by annual. So in every 6 months, you get interest return back to you. Before then, during maturity, when it's time for the maturity of the bond, you get the full amount that you lent to the government. So you get your money back as well as interest. So I believe that's a win-win situation. So there's always an upside to investing in government security. There's also the risk-free element, when
Mm.
it comes to investing in. So you can invest in government securities and you're rest assured that your funds are safe. So that's also a good upside or reason why you should invest in government bonds.
All right. I hope that answers your question, Gilbert. We need to wrap it up this morning. Thank you for the message and keeping it in. Thank you so very much to you, Oyinkansola Aregbesola. She's an investment associate at AAG Capital. It's been a pleasure having you on the show once again.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a great Wednesday and a great rest of the week as well. Lagos, Nigeria, and the entire world. Thank you for keeping it tuned to Smooth 98.1. The Smooth Breakfast will kick on. It's more great music coming your way to light up your Wednesday morning before we get into 7:30 and a look at the papers on Freshly Pressed.